Good morning, everyone, and welcome to City Club Missoula's November Forum, Making Sense of TIF Funding. I'm Alex Karklins, and I have the great privilege of serving as chair of the City Club Missoula Board of Directors in 2025. Thank you all for being here today. City Club's mission is to bring together people to inform and inspire citizens on issues vital to the Missoula area community through public forums that encourage the discussion of new ideas and the free exchange of thought. We have a deep commitment to civility and civil discourse, even when discussing challenging topics. Some sincere thank yous. First, let me thank the Missoula Community Access Television for recording all of our forums as part of their media assistance grants to nonprofit organizations. MCAT serves our community on cable channels 189 and 190, and you can view past forums on MCAT's YouTube channel. A special thank you to our executive level sponsors, Blackfoot Communications and First Security Bank. Our executive level sponsors are key partners in helping expand audience access and public awareness of upcoming forums. We are grateful to all of our sponsors at all sponsorship levels for their generosity and advocacy for our mission. We invite you to join as a sponsor or as a member by visiting cityclubmissoula.com. Thank you to our board of directors and especially our administrator, Jenny Rohrbach, who keeps things running smoothly behind the scenes. City Club would also like to acknowledge that we are in the Aboriginal territories of the Salish and Kalispel people, some of whom may be present with us today at this forum. Today we honor the path they have shown us in caring for this place for generations to come. Finally, 2025 marks the 20th anniversary of City Club Missoula. Thank you to all those who have participated in our forums, provided sponsorships, and volunteered their time as board members over the years. We owe our current success to you. Now I'm just going to introduce our moderator, and he'll introduce our panelists. Our moderator is Patrick Barkey. Patrick Barkey has recently stepped down after 16 years as director of the Bureau of Business and Economic Research at the University of Montana. He continues to be active in public policy and serve as host of his daily business podcast, the Montana Economic Minute. He has been involved with economic forecasting and policy research for more than 40 years in both the private and public sectors. He has authored studies on energy development, tourism, labor markets, tax policy, and international trade. Patrick, you can go ahead and introduce the two other panelists.
Thanks, Alex. I try to do as I'm told, but I'm kind of a loose cannon up here, you know. I might just rip this whole script up. And we have two outstanding panelists here that you'll have a chance to interact with. To my right, to your left, is Jesse Ramos, who serves as State Director for Americans for Prosperity, Montana, where he leads efforts to advance policies that expand economic freedom and opportunity across the state. Previously, as most of us know, he served on the City Council as its youngest member, where he championed fiscal responsibility and government accountability. At least that's what he wrote here. Today, he continues to work at the intersection of policy, energy, and entrepreneurship, building coalitions with business leaders, grassroots advocates, and policymakers to unleash innovation, restore Montana's middle class, and ensure the state remains a leader in entrepreneurship. So welcome, Jesse. And to my right, also no stranger, is Karl Englund, who's a Montana native, graduate of University of Montana and UM Law School. He's now retired after having practiced law throughout Montana for about 40 years. Karl served on the board and is president of Montana Trial Lawyers Association, appointed by the Montana Supreme Court to the Montana's Judicial Nominations Commission. He was appointed by the Montana's federal court judges as Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals lawyer representative. For 12 years, he's on the Montana Board of Investments, 4 years old as its chair. And finally, he gets around to this. For 12 years, and for longer than he's willing to admit, he's been a member and is now chair of the board of the Missoula Redevelopment Agency, somewhat relevant to this program. Prior to attending law school, Karl worked for the Northern Plains Resource Council, Max Baucus' first congressional campaign, and for the late Senator Lee Metcalf. So I believe you have a little bit of history in your resume, Karl. Thank you very much. So on to hijacking the agenda. Is TIF good for Missoula? Well, wait a minute. What the heck is TIF? I told my wife what I was talking about this morning, and she gave me the usual quizzical look, and she immediately started Googling. All right. Depending on how you look at it, TIF is either a temporary diversion of property tax revenue to fund specific actions conceived as a means of removing roadblocks to growth and alleviate blight. TIF is also a reduction in resources available to schools and other public services that must be made up by general taxpayers. Now, neither of those statements is absolutely true, but neither is totally false either. And today's discussion will bear that out. Trying to pull back the curtain on how or whether TIF makes Missoula better. But wait a minute, what is TIF? TIF, tax increment financing. It's an attempt to create a win-win situation for economic development and the tax base. And it's easiest to understand if you go back to the original notion when it got started. It's as an economic development tool to revive blighted areas originally in central cities. So you look at areas with high crime, high unemployment, physical deterioration, and you say, what can we do? And this was put forth as a way of doing that. So it's just a few steps. Okay, step one is we find what page I'm on. Alex, aren't you supposed to be holding this for me? Designate a geographic area called a TIF district, usually within an incorporated area. And that's the area of focus for these efforts. Secondly, measure and record the amount of property tax revenue that area contributes to the overall tax base that's generated within this district to serve as a baseline going forward. That's at the beginning. Step three, for a fixed period of time going forward, this varies. This is varied over time. Let's say for purposes of conversation, it's a maximum of 30 years. These folks will correct me. Dedicate any actual tax collections in excess of the baseline to serve as a pool of funds for specific projects within the district that can jumpstart growth. That's the mission. And step four, lest we not forget, is to sunset the district. It goes by different names with different criteria for forming these districts and to go forward with this program. All use the same incremental tax gains as a funding mechanism. Missoula has 6 districts. Montana, as a state, has 65. The Montana Free Press article was a very good summary of this. There are thousands of them nationwide. Iowa, of all places, has over 3,000 TIF districts. A lot of blight out there. They're allowed in all states except Arizona. Some states like California have alternately banned them and brought them back. But they're everywhere. They're everywhere around Montana, Billings, Great Falls, even Whitehall had one for a while. So now for the loose cannon part of this, let me give you just some observations on TIF from my point of view. And I will say, in a sense of fairness, I'm the only one that gets to do this. Because you all have to ask questions that that are questions, not speeches. But so my first observation on TIF is there's the rhetoric and there's the reality, right? Missoula is not Detroit. It's not St. Louis. Blight is a very locally defined term. And the definition of blight, as you can tell from my talk about Iowa, is very elastic. And TIF districts, not surprisingly in Montana, where you got to go a long ways to do everything, the TIF districts are geographically fairly good sized. All right. Another observation. These things last over time. We're not talking about today establishing a TIF. We're talking about having a TIF run for decades. And over time, things happen. there's growth, hopefully. That's the whole object. TIF's also going to last a long time when the revenue is used to finance bonds. Over time, I'm an economist, over time, this baseline revenue that goes back to the local, that goes just as before, back to governments and other taxing districts, that shrinks in terms of purchasing power, all right? Something called inflation, all right? So that does increase the burden on other taxpayers as the purchasing power of the baseline TIF revenues fall. There's a lot of issues with governance, and this cuts both ways, right? I mean, governance is, city councils do not directly direct TIF spending. And that might be good, or it might be bad, but it's certainly different. I think there's a bit of mission creep in TIF. This is inevitable. The allowable uses of TIF have expanded, although the last change, substantive change was made in 2003, which allowed TIF districts to fund workforce housing, which is to say just about all housing that's targeted towards people of more modest incomes. Another observation has to do with the impact of TIF. And this is where I, myself, as an economist, put my analytical hat on. And in order to answer the question, is TIF good for Missoula, we have to think about an alternate future. What would have happened in Missoula without TIF? All right? That's a super important question. Hard to answer. Would investment have happened anyway? Would investment that already would have happened in Missoula just merely land in the TIF district so that the total pool didn't change? Or was there new money brought in and real change? So that's another thing. I have something very profound to say on a page that is evidently missing. Do you have my page? Did you steal my last page?
I had it. I was giving it right to you, sir.
Let's see. No, not yet. Carl's itching at the boot. I'm using up my time flipping pages, but I think I actually have 2 sheets of paper here. I do. Look at this. Profoundness is here. All right, so what's my take on this? My take as an economist and an observer of local government and local public finance, I think TIF appeals very strongly to people who love focus. I think that's the beauty of TIF, is we bring public resources to bear on specific projects and investments that really move the needle. I know many of you in this room are involved in those efforts. You're very proud of them. And this forum will give you a chance to talk about that, as I'm sure some of our speakers will as well. So this is everything from economic growth, physical transformation of specific neighborhoods, which we've all seen here in Missoula, tracts of land, etc. The irony is that local government can't be as focused like a private sector entity. Local government is for everyone. And local government serves the needs of everyone who lives in the local government's jurisdiction. So there's a little tension there. And I think that positions that some of us take on TIF are often just that. They're debates on what is the role of government. Do we want our government to be an active partner in public sector investment that grows the economy? Or do we want the government to, quote, get out of the way, to provide services at minimum cost, and to be a neutral arbiter of how the economy grows? I think in Missoula that question has largely been answered, but I wait to hear your answers. So that's my comments, and I'm looking for the guy with the huge sign that says I'm done, but he says time's up. See, he was just so hypnotized by what I was saying. We got him just where we want him here, folks. Okay, so now I'm going to turn it over to Jesse and Jesse Ramos to make some comments from your point of view. Jesse, it's all yours.
Wonderful. Do I have a clicker? I was told I would have a clicker. Excellent. Perfect. All right. So, as mentioned, my name is Jesse Ramos. I've become affectionately known as the quote-unquote TIF hater across Montana, even though that is not necessarily true. I'm actually not going to argue that TIF doesn't work. I'm going to say that it does work. It doesn't work for the citizens right now, but there are specific cases where it works. My point is just that, unfortunately, as Patrick Barkey said, there's been a lot of mission creep, and it no longer resembles the tool that it once was when it was first created. So, don't take my word for it. There's some other folks up here, far from Republicans, people that actually do know exactly what they're talking about. We have Jeff Badnock here in the audience, who served as the second director of the Missoula Redevelopment Agency for 18 years. He was Ellen Buchanan before Ellen Buchanan, and he actually has a lot of my same arguments. So again, they're going to try and say, I don't know what I'm talking about, I don't understand TIF. But we also have Jerry Brown, who's the governor of California, of course, far from a conservative, 4 terms in there. 2 terms as the mayor of Oakland, so he has a lot of experience with TIF. TIF was actually created in California. And then we have David Merriam, who's nationally recognized as an expert on TIF policy. And so let's just see what they have to say. Jeff Badnock, I do appreciate you disavowing most of what I say, but on the issue of TIF, you do acknowledge that there's a little less daylight between us. You've pointed out time and time again that if there's a temptation to use a tool too often, you're not a very good craftsman. I completely agree with you on that. And then Governor Jerry Brown, again, far from a conservative. It's a honeypot of local public dollars subsidizing private real estate ventures. And then David Merriam, of course, says the TIF does not create revenue, it just reallocates it from the general fund. And my argument, so first and foremost, TIF has far outlived its usefulness. Again, we have a completely different state than we did in 1978 when this was created. Montana has been discovered. We don't need government subsidy to attract development. TIF is the very definition of corporate welfare. We're going to hear this time and time again, that it is not corporate welfare, but the checks go directly to the private businesses. And again, they even label it as a quote-unquote incentive to businesses. So definitely corporate welfare. It is gluttonous, overfed, bloated, and abused. It siphons millions of dollars away from the taxpayers, regardless of if that growth came from TIF or not. And again, we have 6 districts that are going to expand or have been expanded for 40 years. That is 4 decades. That's longer than most of us are going to be alive. What my opponents say, if you criticize TIF, it's because you don't understand it. That's the #1 argument that we hear is that, oh, Jesse's this big idiot. He doesn't understand TIF. They're right. I am an idiot, but I do actually understand TIF. They're also going to argue that without TIF, nothing would ever get built. So all of Missoula would turn into the shadowy place where the light never touches and Simba can't go in The Lion King. It would just be total despair. The most recent argument that I've heard is that it only funds public infrastructure. This is interesting to me because I hear that it only funds public infrastructure, but it's also an incentive. So how exactly is it an incentive if it just funds public infrastructure? And then, of course, it doesn't raise taxes, and it's responsible for all growth in a district. Again, we will examine those statements. So, outside of a TIF district, in the absence of TIF, where does a typical tax dollar go? Well, it's pretty simple. For simplicity purposes, we'll just say 30% city, 30% county, 30% schools. We got to share the money. In Missoula, in these 6 districts right here, for 40 years, or probably will be 40 years if they extend the districts, all the growth in those districts, 100% of that money goes to the Missoula Redevelopment Agency. So I understand Mayor Davis, Mayor Englund, I understand why they like TIF, because all of a sudden they get 100 cents on the dollar and they no longer have to share it with the city, the county, and the schools. They get to use it for this special fund for pet projects and corporate welfare. So again, TIF was created to fight blight. Nobody disagrees with that. I just want to show you guys some places right now that are considered blighted by Montana local governments and MRA boards. So we have the Reserve Street Corridor. Very dismal place, beautiful golf course right there. We've got a beautiful business corridor. We've got a dealership right there, a car dealership, but apparently this is blighted. Downtown Bozeman. I didn't realize this, I didn't get the memo, but apparently this is a rotten, dilapidated heck hole as well, very blighted. And then my favorite, Big Sky, known most famously for being the largest ski resort in the world, or in the United States at least, also apparently known for being very blighted. They have their very own TIF district. Fascinating to me. So TIF is like steroids. Patrick talked about this. Essentially, if an area is blighted, if somebody is sick, steroids, or in this case TIF, can be very helpful. However, if an area is not blighted or somebody is not healthy, steroids as Arnold Schwarzenegger will show, have some side effects, unfortunately. And so that's what we're seeing right now. We are seeing side effects in the form of higher taxes, unaffordability, and corporate welfare, and again, taxes being siphoned off. So, again, think of these districts. The city is injecting steroids into each and every one of these districts at the expense of the rest of the city as a whole. So, my big argument, as Patrick alluded to, they're undemocratic in the sense of if the decision isn't involving bonding or land purchases and a few other minor things, the elected officials of the people don't get to vote on it. It's mayoral appointed bureaucrats and political appointees that vote for this. And of course, this is the benefit of the elected officials, because when the MRA spends $35,000 on a dog statue and the voters are mad about that, the constituents go to their elected official and the elected official says, whoa, 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 that wasn't me, that was the MRA. Because the MRA is not accountable to the voters. This is a big one, debt within the urban renewal districts. $100 million in debt, 85 to 100 million in debt, that was never voted on. So with the library, this very building, the people had to vote on the bonds for this. Same with the parks, with Fort Missoula Regional Park. This money was never voted on by the people. It was voted on by the city council. It was not voted on by the people because it was in a TIF district. Again, it's supposed to last for 15 years, often lasts for 40 years. So this is how TIF raises taxes. Right now, $16.9 million is being skimmed off the tax base. That's roughly $5 million from the city, $5 million from the county, $5 million from the schools. Just to put that in perspective, Missoula County, Commissioner Slot collects $70 million a year in property taxes. So $17 million represents 24% of your entire property tax base that is being skimmed off the top. The MRA's budget, including increment reserves, is $47 million. That is almost as much as you guys collect in the county, Commissioner Slotnick, on property taxes. Again, we talked about the debt. So let's just go through a quick example of how it raises taxes. So there's a local school that needs to raise $600 for some needs of their kids. This also works with sheriff, with the county, with the fire district, and they need $600. So they go to their district, and for simplicity purposes, we'll say half of their district's in a TIF district, half is outside a TIF district. So they levy the $600. Question is, how much money do they still need? They still need $300 because this $300 inside the TIF district doesn't go to the school. It goes to the Missoula Redevelopment Agency. And so they got to levy $600 more because you have to levy equally inside and outside the district. And so, again, it cost $1,200 to get $600 because of this TIF district. And the $600 over here that was levied for the schools, for the fire, it's not going to that. No, no, no. It's going to the redevelopment agency. So that is exactly how this works. Again, we've got some local school folks here that attest to this. We've got Matt Dreesen of Dismet School. We've got Denise Williams, MCPS Executive Director. And we've got Rob Watson, who supports a lot of my TIF reforms that I've advocated for. We've got mill levies failing because the voters know that the money is already gone somewhere. So we've got these mill levies failing. And the reason for that is because the money is already there. Again, $16.9 million will take off the debt service, $4.4 million. That leaves $4 million each that could go to the city, the county, and the schools, more than enough to cover the needs of these ballot measures instead of asking the voters to pay twice. The money already exists. And again, the MRA has already admitted that it takes property taxes and increases property taxes because they've given back in remittances $25 million over the last 8 years. The thing is, that's good that they do that, but it shouldn't be at the discretion of just the city and the Missoula Redevelopment Agency. It should be at the discretion of Josh Slotnick and people that people have voted for in the schools and the county. That's their money, and that's where it should go. Inside baseball, real quick, so let's just say we have a bank, and the taxpayers want to give them $1.5 million. We don't have the money to do it in cash, so we borrow it, 4% double tax-free muni bond, $1.2 million in interest. This is a real-life example. We borrowed the money to give to this bank from this bank itself. This happened right here in Missoula. We are paying them interest on their own handout, $2.7 million. David Merriam said he's never seen anything like this. Lastly, we'll say these are the concerns of Missoulians: high property taxes, low wages, housing affordability. I would say dead last on this list, probably 999th, is a lack of subsidized development. We no longer need it. Again, my conclusion is let TIF reduce property taxes. We need to sunset the TIF district above and beyond the debt service. We could lower property taxes for folks, and they could actually get back some of their hard-earned money that they invested in with these TIFs. We need to tighten up the definitions. A blighted area must be a blighted area. If you want to attract businesses, Lower property taxes for everybody. Make it easier to do business. Reduce red tape. Don't pick winners and losers. And finally, Missoula was built in the 1860s with axes, mule teams, and grit. America revolutionized industry, all without TIF, and we can do it again. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Jesse. I was going to interrupt when you took a breath, but you never did. And now we'll hand it over to Karl Englund, who will give his 10 minutes of presentation. It's all yours, Kurt. It's all yours, but Karl, it's all yours too. Thanks, Pete. Pat.
All right. So, you've heard tax increment financing is a method used in 49 states and the District of Columbia to provide resources to fund, to pay for programs that the elected policymakers of the states have determined is, and the elected policymakers in countless local governments within those states have determined to be important, needed, or valuable. So it's a method, one of various methods to provide resources for some program or policy that elected policymakers have determined to be beneficial and in the public interest. In Montana, and so any discussion of TIF should really look at what's the program, is it something that's good, important, how's it working, and then the last thing is what other alternatives exist in the locality to do this. Under Montana law, cities can use TIF financing for urban renewal, urban redevelopment. And that third question I posed, that's an easy one because there are no other alternatives that the legislature has created to do this work. Missoula's had urban renewal districts since 1978, and it is, of course, perfectly reasonable and appropriate to look at that program and ask how it's working. And in my completely unbiased, neutral opinion, I'm telling you it's working pretty doggone well. So let's go back real quick. The legislature has determined that there are areas within Missoula's or within Montana's communities that because of the condition of private property, public property, and the public infrastructure need a little extra help. And the legislature has decided that if cities want to use that program, there's no requirement that they do, but all of the major cities in Montana do, they have to go through a detailed process to identify whether an area meets the statutory criteria to be put in an urban renewal district. And if so, then the city council determines if they want to create a urban renewal district and the boundaries of that district and a plan for what will be done in that district while it is alive. MRA simply administers the urban renewal districts within the city and must do so in accordance with the law and with the plans adopted in the district. So since 1978, how do I do this? Which one? Okay, since 1978, Missoula has established 7 renewal districts, 7 plans, 1, the downtown district has come and gone. Once a district is created, the city, you want to make sure the city has established that. Once the district is created, MRA can begin work. Within the district as allowed by law, work takes money, and the money comes from tax increment financing. So, property taxes are leveled by the city, the county, the state, and a few other taxing jurisdictions. And when a district is created, the tax revenue attributable to the value of the property when the district was created is divided among the taxing jurisdictions, and the tax revenue attributable to growth goes into the redevelopment fund to be used by the city. 2/3, this is the increment development, 2/3 of that money would not otherwise be available to the city in the absence of a district. In other words, 2/3 of what's spent by the Missoula Redevelopment Agency, what's available to the city, would not otherwise be available to the city. What can the money be used for? Well, it can be used to build things, mostly infrastructure, pipes and tubes and concrete and asphalt, and what it takes to plan for and improve or establish the public infrastructure. It's public money. It can only be used for the purposes that the state statute allows, and only in compliance with the plan, and only in the district from which it came. So for publicly owned projects, we're looking at parks and trails and roads and sidewalks and gutters and the purchase and the fixing up of public buildings, not a dime for ongoing operations. And it can be used for what are the public aspects of private development: sidewalks, curbs, gutters, those kinds of things associated with a private development within the district. Now, why in the world would we subsidize private development in the district? 2 reasons. The first one is that the law says we have to. The law says that to the greatest extent feasible, we must afford maximum opportunity, these are quotes, to the rehabilitation or redevelopment of an urban renewal district by private enterprise. And the second reason is that this whole program works on the idea that there's growth within the district. And the surest way to get tax growth within the district is for a private tax-paying entity to build or improve their property. And therefore, that's what funds the program. So the money has been spent on private projects, some of which have preserved some of Montana's iconic buildings. Funds were used to pay for the public infrastructure associated with new construction or significant remodel of big businesses, and for countless small businesses. 26-page spreadsheet, if you can see this, of projects that MRA has worked on since its beginning. And then the tax increment, the additional revenue generated by those private projects, helps pay some of the costs of infrastructure for building by Missoula's nonprofits, like the Food Bank, the Western Montana Mental Health Center, and the Partnership Health Center. And the additional tax revenue has been used to pay for public buildings, like the library, like this room, and the remodel of the courthouse, and for housing projects. MRA has spent in excess of $30 million on housing projects, 2,500 plus housing units, 920 of which are income restricted or affordable. And it helps pay for other public works projects. We've contributed to 94 acres of parkland and improvements. We've paid for, paved, put bridges on, and lighted about 8.5 miles of trail. We've contributed to the construction of 3 parking structures and a parking under the Rome. We've paid for 10 miles of new streets. Urban renewal funds have paid for new water mains, the cost of utility service, realignments and consolidations. They've contributed to the cost of a new basketball court and public art, and they've been used to pay for traffic circles, traffic lights, crosswalks, fire hydrants, street lightings, culverts, literally miles and miles of curbs, sidewalks, and gutters. And the funds were the exclusive funds used to pay for 16 miles of sidewalks in neighborhoods that needed them and could not afford them. And so, and we do so in accordance with all of city policies, and including, and in furtherance of all the city policies, and according to the rules established by the city council. This is a look at at what we're spending money on, and as you can see, the situation here is to balance the private and the public in a way that investment in private property funds the stuff for public infrastructure. And then you say, well, and as Jesse mentioned, when the city council decides that it needs resources to continue to provide the level of services that it must, it can take money from the MRA, and the money goes back to all of the taxing jurisdictions. So does it work? Well, this is downtown Missoula. This is south of Broadway, is all in the urban renewal district. North of Broadway is not. That's what's happened in the downtown urban renewal district. Something's going on here. I doubt if it all has to do with the MRA, but clearly we had something to do with it. I want to make sure we're clear on what it is we don't do. We don't buy and sell property. Only the city council can make that decision, although they do so and come to us and say, can we use TIF funds to do it? And we say yes, of course. We don't incur any debt. Only the city council, the elected city council, can vote to incur debt. And we don't violate any law or regulation, including our law that everything we do is done in public. This is when we meet. We'd love to see you there, and we're ready to answer questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Karl, and thank you to Jesse. Now it's time for you to give, Alex will give you your homework assignment.
Thank you, Patrick. So right now we're heading to the Table Talk portion of our program. If you're not familiar with Table Talk, we're going to give you approximately 10 minutes to introduce yourself among your table mates, formulate a question as a group, and appoint somebody to ask that question. We will have these are the rules up here on the board. We have 10 minutes to come up with each question, decide on the person, and then keep in mind keep your questions respectful. Avoid making statements and avoid multi-part questions. Members of the media, please wait till after the forum. See you in about 10 minutes, maybe a little bit sooner since we did get a little bit of a late start. So thank you. See you shortly. Okay, everybody, I think we're going to want to get started with the Q&A portion. So just remember, when you're ready to ask your question, please raise your hand. Our board members will go around with microphones. Stand up, state your name, and briefly provide a brief question there. Avoid multi-part questions or any autobiographical details. And we'll go ahead. Are we ready to go, Eric? Okay.
Okay, we have, we'll let each panelist answer the questions unless it's just directed solely to one. So let's go right here. Okay. Question number one.
Just want to give credit. We got a lot of people from the South at our table. It's been a blast, so thanks. I'm not. So, yeah, our question has to do with, we see that the MRA has made remittances of tax increment funds to the taxing entities over the past few years. And we think we understand that. It's partly to relieve the budget pressures that we have in the city and the county and the schools. How do you guys think about remittances? And in particular, do you have like more of a feeling now when we're all having property tax exhaustion to, kind of talk about remittances, how you think about them, and how they play into being used more in a time of property tax exhaustion versus 10 years ago when we were all so happy to pay all our taxes?
So just to establish a precedent, and your name is? Unamplified. Thank you. I'll let you go first. You're on already. Don't worry.
Okay. So, again, the MRA board administers the program. We do so in accordance with city policy, with the plans, and we do so in accordance when the city council says we need to take money from. It's their call. They work in conjunction, I think, they've got their budget. Every dollar that they need for their budget means that $3 or almost $4 come out of the MRA funds. And we have some board members who say, oh my goodness, look at what we're facing, and we're losing all this money, and we've got big projects coming down the pike, and this is terrible, awful, and it shouldn't happen, but it's not our call to make, and we'll live with the call that the elected leaders make. Is that?
Okay.
Excuse me? The city decides. We have no, it's not our call to make. Council has been gracious enough to MRA to say, we need X amount of dollars from MRA. Will you please figure out the best way to divide that among the various urban renewal districts? Because each urban renewal district is essentially a separate entity. But it's their call to make, and we live with it. And
Okay.
What's been good in the last few years is that when the city and county are strapped and the council has decided to do it, we have the money to do it. School districts are a whole different matter because of the complete complicated thing that the school district financial things are. The school district doesn't really get any extra money because of the cap, and so they either have to turn the money back to the state or lower their mills. So the taxpayers in the school district get a little break, but the school district doesn't get any, I don't think, any additional money.
Okay. If we could bring that mic back, and we'll let Jesse have a response. The original question was about remittances going forward.
Perfect. I'll keep this really brief because I think remittances are the biggest tell that the MRA is taking too much money from the taxpayers. The fact that they've been able to remit $25 million over 8 years shows how steroided out these districts are and how much money these things have been just so pumped up. They have been extended way too long, 40 years, again. And the remittances, they're all well and good, but at the end of the day, they're very unpredictable. It's almost impossible for Commissioner Slotnick or folks on the school board to actually plan their budgets around a remittance that may or may not come. That money should be going back to them every single year so they can actually, again, plan and reduce taxes, to your point, to alleviate the tax burden. That is a much bigger concern to the people of Missoula right now than subsidized development. Again, $25 million over 8 years. The county gets some, the schools get some, and then the city gets some. But because it's essentially at the will of just one governing body that oversees those dollars, it's really unpredictable, and it makes it, again, so hard for the elected officials that you all have elected to make a good budget and to reduce your taxes because their hands are strapped. They still have to provide services, and they don't know if that money's going to come or not.
Thank you. Next. Quick elbows are rewarded. Oops, right here. The microphone is the key. Please don't forget to give us your name.
Yeah, excuse me, I got new knees about a month ago. So first, before I ask the question, I just want to say this is the 250th anniversary of the U.S. Marine Corps. Hoorah! Now, our question, how can MRA get more leverage with the developer to develop more of the things that serve the public, such as affordable housing at Midtown, as there is none so far and no room for public input?
Okay, we're letting both of our folks answer. And Jesse, do you want to address that before we ask Karl?
Keep that really quick. That is a great question. The problem is, again, is that the MRA was created with the sole purpose to eliminate blight. They're not created with the sole purpose to help alleviate housing or to do X, Y, and Z that you just listed. They are created to eliminate blight. And again, I heard an interesting statistic that it's $30 million that the MRA has contributed to affordable housing across 2,500 units. So if my math's not wrong, that's $12,000 per unit. I think that everybody here knows that that is a major goosing of the numbers because, again, a typical unit costs hundreds of thousands of dollars. So for them to try and claim 2,500 units with $30 million is a significant stretch. So that's all I'll say about that. I'll say that they are constrained by state law to, as you would say, leverage more out of the private sector. But the point is, again, that they've outlived their usefulness and taxes need to be lower, and it has to be a better place overall for folks to come to build housing affordability because housing affordability is not going to be solved with tax increment financing.
Okay, here's Here's the new rule. Answer the question or I won't give you the mic. The question had to do with leverage, and Carl asked you the same,
Okay,
same rule
well,
applies to
let
you
me
too.
make a correction here. I didn't claim that we built 2,500 units with $30 million. I said that we contributed to projects that built 2,500 units and contributed $30 million. So there's a lot of other money in it. So the way that we can do it is this new program for workforce housing that the legislature enacted 2 sessions ago, but didn't put any meat on the bones until last session. And it enables us to actually invest public money in the building of units that meet the workforce housing standard, which is, Ellen, 60 to 140% of area median income. So we can do that. And one of the things that's being done in Midtown is looking at the MRL property and trying to figure out how we can maximize the amount of affordable housing, workforce housing, in that particular area. But let me give you a number. For a family of 4 earning 120% of annual median income, or about $110,000, in order to subsidize, in order to make a house affordable for them to buy, we need to invest $100,000 per unit. So it's expensive. And that's, to me, is an indication that we may need more money in MRA rather than less.
Okay. Next questioner microphone is making its way. Whoops. How about over here? Well, all right, you'll be next.
Thank you. Mark Thane, and the question for each of the presenters would be, if you had the authority to make a single change to tax increment financing, what would you do?
Oh.
There you go. You don't have a
So
slide for that.
I'm going to defer.
Okay, that's good.
Because
More time.
I administer the program. We administer the program according to the laws, and we're able to do so. The people that deal with the policy, the mayor, the county commissioner, or somebody might be a much better person to answer that question than me.
Okay, next answer. Carl, wait.
Thanks, Carl. Awesome.
I just
Thanks,
lost
Carl.
control.
Hi, everybody. Andrea Davis, Mayor of Missoula. It's good to see you all. Thank you. Good to be here. Thanks for this conversation. I should say that we should have it again. You can tell that it's too complex for 1 hour, and tax policy in Montana is one heck of a thing to get into. I would say that probably what I think probably most people want to hear is, well, we should sunset it. We should take a look at the time frame. I would say the one change that I would want to look at is, what are the indicators that we should have to actually evaluate that? Here's the reason I say that. The Riverfront Triangle we've been trying to get a deal going there for 40 years. We got a deal going there just a couple of months ago. That's a big deal. We are investing infrastructure dollars to help vertical construction. The infrastructure will go across a very blighted part of town. You know what I'm talking about, right? That corner of downtown that is basically decaying into the ground. I would call that blight. That is an area where not only are we going to be able to get a much needed conference center and that the Downtown Association has wanted to see and folks downtown, but we're going to extend the trail and we're going to get $7 million over the course of 10 years invested in the Affordable Housing Trust Fund because of that deal. But that district has been in place since 2008. Am I right? 2008? Okay, so it's 2025. So we're talking about almost 20 years. So if we basically just give it a numerical figure and say, well, when you create a district, it's in place for 15 years. So if you say, well, if we don't get a deal going in 15 years, it sunsets, the question we have to ask ourselves is that really the numerical figure we need to give it? What is the evaluation tool? Because ultimately it took that long to see something happen there, and now we are seeing something really impactful for the city of Missoula in a multitude of ways. So that would be the one change that I would like to see, is what, from the legislative perspective, taking a look at how do we balance the needs to reasonably take a look at the need for sunsetting these districts, and also, but what's the actual evaluation tool that we need to give it? Is that okay?
Thank you. Okay, Jesse Ramos, you want to
Perfect.
change?
Do I get a phone a friend too? I will say that 2 versus 1 is better than the 12 versus 1 that I had for my entire time on City Council. So I do want to focus in on the changes real quick. So first of all, the main change that I would like to see is actually tie the definition of blight to declining property values. That would fix everything. If you can only spend TIF dollars in an area where the valuation was actually declining, it would clean up all the abuse overnight. That would be fantastic. And I do want to just touch on one thing that the mayor did allude to about the Riverfront Triangle sitting there for 40 years. What they won't tell you is that the reason it sat there for 40 years is because the stipulations the city put on it for people to build are so outrageous that no private developer will do it. So they're trying to sell you the hose to put out their own fire. The reason why it's blighted is because the stipulations that the city has on it, and that's why nothing has happened. Do you really think that this beautiful downtown Missoula is just going to be developed, and then the developers are like, no, I don't want to touch that area? Again, I just want to point this out because it needs to be factual, it needs to be true. So again, that's what I do. Tied it to declining property values.
Okay, who's next? We have a front table here for a question for our panelists.
Yeah, Jana Staten. Our question is a better or a clearer explanation for us of how the length of time is set for the district and then the bond, and what could be done about that, kind of a follow-up to the discussion we just had.
Okay, we'll let Jesse do the what can be done. We'll let Kurt talk about how that's determined. You're on.
It's real simple. District lasts 15 years or until a bond issued in that 15-year period is paid off, and bonds can be issued for a maximum of 25 years. So in theory, it could go to 40. It really can't, because bonding is complicated and takes a lot of work and et cetera. So, but 40 would be the maximum. That's 15 plus 25.
And what could be done to deal with the issues that arise?
Awesome. So what can be done is we can actually go to the voters and ask them to approve these bonds first and foremost, like we do any other bond, and especially when it extends a TIF district out. This has been done in Oregon. This has been done in Washington. This has been done different places. So Urban Renewal District 3, which is massive, it's the one that I talked about right by the golf course, that really, really blighted hellhole over there. That is the area specifically that it was set to sunset in 2015, and they sold debt on the 15th year to pay for that walking bridge, and it extended out to the year 2040, and the voters never got a chance to say that. I talked to a lot of folks on the city council at the time, and they didn't even know that their vote for those bonds would actually extend the district out. And I went back and looked at the public record on that, and it was not made clear to the council that their vote for those bonds for the walking bridge would extend that district out until the year 2040. So not only did the city and the residents not get a say on the bonds, they didn't get a say to extend the district out, and the city council didn't even have it clearly explained to them that it would extend that district out for another 25 years till the year 2040. So again, have the voters.
Bunch of tables we haven't heard from.
Have the voters approve.
Okay, here we go, right here in front.
Over here.
Okay, you're next.
David Gray. If a school bond is passing, or a parks bond, or a fire department bond is passing, is it a state rule that says the TIF district money stays in the TIF, or is that a local rule that says that money can't go towards that bond specifically?
Bonds that are voted on, the money goes to there's no increment taken off of those bonds.
Okay.
Now.
I think we need more
Isn't it?
elaboration.
Yeah.
The legislature has clarified that when there's a voted levy or there's a voted bond issue, the tax increment districts do not get benefit of that. And we lobbied for that to be made clear at the state legislature. If the citizens vote for a bond to build a park, that's what the money should go for. It shouldn't be coming to the tax increment districts, and it does not.
Okay. Other question, right? Well, that seemed like a factual thing, but okay. In the interest of equal time here, well.
Hello. Bueller. Okay, so we did actually gloss over something very important. So absolutely, I'm advocating for keeping all the monies in the district to pay the bonds. I don't want to default on the debt. But the question is above and beyond that, I think is how I interpreted that. And there's nothing in state law requiring that money to stay in the district above and beyond the debt service, hence the remittances. And I just like to see it more consistent across the board.
I'm doing the best I can here.
Okay, I'm live. My name is Bob. Our table wanted to just clarify whether TIF funds, cash, ever flow directly to private sector entities.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes. If all right. So let's take a situation. You own a piece of property in the district and you decide to redevelop it. And in order to redevelop it, you have to build a bunch of sidewalks. Okay? And you're in the district, and we've got the money, and you're in compliance with the plan. We will reimburse you for the cost of that sidewalk. You decide you're going to put in gold-plated toilets? Nope. You decide you're going to put stuff on the interior that makes it a nicer building? Nope. It's the public, what I call the public aspects of the private project. So sidewalks, curbs, gutters. If there's a water main that's needed, we can pay for the water main, but not your service line, because that doesn't serve the public. So does that help? Okay.
Is that good? No?
Yeah, so, oh man, it's all about the sidewalks. I didn't realize that the money just went to pay for sidewalks. So the AC Marriott, they got $3.5 million. That is an expensive sidewalk down there. Holy camole, that is expensive. And again, we hear that it's just for public infrastructure, but at the same time, we hear them say that this is the only tool we have to incentivize developers here, and we just heard the money goes directly to the developers. So how is it an incentive for businesses to have public infrastructure built? The question is, A, because you and I, if we live in the city limits, we have to pay for our own sidewalks. My first year on council, I heard some folks that got bills for $43,000 from the city to pay for city-owned sidewalks right around Christmas. That has since been lowered to $9,000 and now to $3,000. But thanks to Councilwoman Vasika's great work back there, it's down to $3,000. But still, $3,000 to us, while these big corporations get their infrastructure for free. And then also it pays for, obviously, demolition, deconstruction, all the stuff that urban developers have to pay for. And it pays for facade improvements and various different things that directly benefit that business. So again, it's not about the sidewalks.
Well, that was a lot more than yes, but that was good. So we have one over here we're going to get after this one. So we'll make you work there. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I can't grab it, I guess. I'm Julie Anton, and our question has to do with a sunset date. How is the decision made, and what metrics are in place to help that decision as far as whether an urban renewal district sunsets or gets extended? And I'm going to throw a second question in because it's a good one from our table is, does someone in a tax increment financing district, does some of that money get taken away from the schools, and if so, how?
Okay, so we'll divide these questions, and we'll let you address the sunset issue. How's that? You're on. Just leave it there. It takes a second.
Okay. The sunsets is a mathematical thing. So it's 15 years or until the bond is paid off at the end of that, their bond that is issued during that 15 years is paid off. That's it. That's how it sunsets. If for some reason other council decides that that the work wasn't done, the area is still blighted, then they have to go through the whole process again if they want to renew it. There isn't such a thing as that would be a new district. So yes, money comes from the schools, but they are able to make it up. So that through increase in their mill levies.
Great question, but
The voted levy.
so let me just ask one clarifying question, Karl. So you're saying that when you're in the midst of a TIF that is not yet expired, yet the investments that you've made have all been carried out, there's no mechanism for extending the life of that TIF short of going through the entire process to be a new TIF?
One more time.
I don't think I can say that again. Well, it was probably a bad question if you didn't understand it. So just
So
let.
if you're in the middle of a TIF, and all the investments have been made, any bond it is 15 years or until a bond that is issued in that 15 years is paid off. So when that bond is paid, if a bond is issued, if the last bond is issued on the 10th year and it's a 25-year bond, then at 35 years, that district ends.
Yeah, I mean, we just heard it from Chairman England that, the schools do still get their money, but it comes at the expense of increased mill levy. So again, I outlined this in my slideshow, if you remember, with the $600. And then again, I think I heard somebody in the back talk about mill levies are failing. Yeah, they're failing because they're being taxed twice. Because again, to get that $600, they have to levy $1,200 total. Because again, the TIF captures that growth from there. And so again, it's skimmed away from them. They're still paying, by the way. These people in the TIF district are still paying just as much as we are, but it's not going to what they actually think it's going for. And we've got Matt Dreesen that can verify that as well.
Okay, we have time for. No, we don't have time. Oh.
I'm sorry. We had a lot of discussion here, lots of great questions. So many thanks to all of you who formulated and got to ask your question. Many thanks to our panelists, Jesse, Karl, and our moderator, Patrick. Thank you for joining us today. Stay tuned, and also a couple other words of thanks. I'd like to thank the Missoula Public Library for allowing us to use this beautiful space for our forums. Really amazing spot. And to Silk Road Catering for all the delicious food. And stay tuned. Next month we're still formulating the topic, but it will have something to do with businesses and organizations in Missoula that are celebrating significant anniversaries, just like City Club. Thanks, everybody.